Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to the Port Adelaide preview. Few interesting players at Port. I'm going to go through the lock, the risk, the breakout, and the players no chance for my side. We're starting to get through these pretty quick now, so it's getting towards the business end. But the lock was the most difficult. I felt in other areas there are a few interesting ones for Port Adelaide. I couldn't really find a lock. A bit like North Melbourne, I don't have a player in my side. No Port player as well. Look, I went Travis Boak almost to just pay a bit of credit and praise to what he did last year. Averaged 107.2 and he was available as a forward. And I think many of us thought his days of scoring those sort of numbers were done. And I think we probably felt that he was never going to be considered ever again. I remember scrolling past him as a forward and thinking, once upon a time probably would have been tempted, but not now. But he was outstanding last year. I know he's in the lock category, but realistically, we can't be calling him a lock. But the players I've got in the risk category are far more interesting, and particularly one. And I did get a message on Instagram about this too, and it's a very good pickup, and that's Scotty Lycett. Now, obviously, he's pretty awkwardly priced, and I know a lot of people have their ruck situation already worked out. Most going set and forget, a bit of Tim English talk, that sort of thing, Nick Nat. But Scott Lycett, the numbers you really want to look at are those without Ryder. Now, obviously, Ryder's gone to the St Kilda Football Club. Should give Lycett a lot more opportunity to just dominate and do as he pleases and be the main man in the ruck. Now, only 5 games. But he did average 125 when Ryder wasn't in the side. 180, 165, 109, 86, and 85. Now, that's a pretty big spectrum. That's 95 points difference from the best and worst. So that is a bit of a lopsided average from a small sample. But if you are looking to go a little bit different, he's been a guy that we've probably spoken about for a while, who's had potential, particularly as a younger player at the Eagles, just couldn't get a chance. Well, he's got his chance now at Port, and he'll never have a better chance than now, given he's the main man. So worth considering. 550k. Obviously, like I said, I don't have a Port Adelaide player in my side, so I'm obviously not considering him too hard. But those numbers are interesting, and his hit-out numbers definitely went up. So, as they naturally would. Something to think about. Ollie Wines I threw in there. Now, that would be a massive risk. He's a pure mid, so you're not going to go him. He's 479k, 88.3 after playing just the 12 games last year. Been stripped of the captaincy, or at least taking that away, taking the pressure away. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see those numbers from Ollie go back to what we have been previously accustomed to, and that's been consistently high 90s, and he did tip into 100 once. Now, those numbers just aren't good enough for a premium midfielder, so I think he's probably more maybe a draft selection if you wanted to maybe pick him up as slightly unders, but he's an interesting one because I think as a young player, I felt that he would be a premium at some point. I think he can average 105 plus, but I just don't think he uses the ball well enough. He's just not a very nice kick, often scrappy clanger kicks out of the centre, and reminds me a little bit of Zeeble sometimes, how they can just jam it on the boot, and it's a good clearance and territory game, but it can be brutal if it just goes straight to the opposition for us. So, something to think about, though. And dare I say it, Jack Watts. Dare I mention his name in the SuperCoach land. But look, it's not the craziest idea. I was scrolling through defenders, and I had also had a message on Instagram as well about this player. And he had crossed my mind. It was funny as I got that message. I had just the night before been watching and doing a bit of research on Jack Watts. Now, he just played the 2 games, but did find himself in a very nice role for Port Adelaide and a nice SuperCoach role. Half-back, just get your 20 to 25, pretty easy touches, distribute it. Watts is pretty competent overhead and a nice ball user. That is his strength. Yes, he's probably been disappointing as a number 1 pick, but his strength is his ball use, and I think that role is going to be successful for him. Obviously, coming back off a massive layoff, huge injury, how will that affect him? But he did start the year off really well last year, 90 and then 72 points off 67% game time. And that's when, obviously, the injury occurred. He was going really well, probably looking at another 90. But then he obviously got that cut short. Now he's at 307k as a defender. And look, to be honest, he's probably a guy that no one's going to consider. But again, draft. It's worth pointing out these sort of underpriced guys, something you might have not thought about. And as I always say, if I can give you something to think about, then that's what I'm after. They're not always absolutely relevant, but he was just an interesting one. And the breakout contender is also a bit interesting, I think. Also falls into the category of not many are going to pick him, but I have seen his name around there, and that's Darcy Byrne-Jones. 473k, and enjoyed a little mini breakout last year. 71.8 up to 87.2. But it's the back end of his year that's really interesting. And as a player, I quite like him. He seems to read the play well. Port Adelaide like to find it in his hands out of the back line. Just seems there was a little bit of Rory Laird about him, just sort of accumulating, finding a few nice marks and just finding himself in the right spots. Now, after round 15, these aren't in order, but the scores he produced were impressive. 117, 121. There's a 130 in there, a 127, a 110. I think there was a 117 as well, if I can read my own handwriting. And there was a 76 and an 87, as well as a 7 off 81% game time. Port fans, tell me what happened there. I didn't see the game, and I saw the 7 and just presumed he went off early. So either the website's got the stats wrong or he had an absolute stinker. But I'd love to hear what happened there. But point being, I think he'll definitely lift his average into the 90s. Will that be enough? We seem to have a lot of good options in the back line. I like a lot of the players down there as premium options. You know, Hunter Clark's down there as well. There's other options too. But at 473, I think his graph's going up. So he's probably a guy that some may be tempted by, and I can understand why. I would definitely think his average will move into the 90s, but just have a look at his pre-season and just ensure that role looks similar and he's in good form if you are thinking about him. And the no chance for my side is Robbie Gray. Now, he's been fantastic for many, many years, but last year, average dropped to 83.4. He was playing a lot more time in attack, and he is getting older now, Robbie. You know, we know his body's been pretty brutal to him at times, has been always difficult to get out in the park consistently. He still showed glimpses. I remember watching the showdown, and he was outstanding. I think he got the medal on that occasion. And that was, I think Boak was a late withdrawal, and Robbie Gray was thrown into the middle. So I think he can still do it, but obviously body just can't handle 22 rounds of footy, let alone 22 rounds in the engine room. So I definitely feel that the rest of his career will be in the forward line, and he'll have some creative moments, have some magic, unbelievable quarters, and win the odd game off his own boot. But I don't think we're going to go anywhere near him. There would have been times previously where we saw R. Gray in the forward line and went, yep, thank you very much, lock that in. But those days are gone now, and don't be tempted, because very, very dangerous stuff. But let me know what you think about Port Adelaide. Couple of interesting options, couple of left field ones. But if you haven't already, subscribe away and have a look at the Instagram as well if you like. Shorties_SuperCoach, trying to build a little bit of that up. And look, we'll try and knock out these last few previews, certainly over the next week, I reckon. And then we can get stuck into some probably more player profiles. And once the Australian Open finishes and the cricket's starting to wind up, then I think we'll definitely be able to get right stuck into it with some more footy news, more chat, more talk, more discussion. That makes it easier for us trying to pinpoint who's on fire. So I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.